kuo la pihe ampo kile wan la ka oyaki tu tawa pa o ki chi je hi oni anaji Chunk ashkei wakab hekuan.
This didn't happen accidentally. You know, we did a lot of research before we even came here. I got to the point of coming here. First of all, what we had to do is we had to decide where to have it. Okay, and then having figured that out, we had to decide where the candidates would be, because it's easier to have candidates come to you if they're already there than get in a plane and drive or fly, 1,000 miles. So we knew that at this time of the month in Iowa, they'd all be here. And so what we did then is, okay, while they're here, what do we need to do next in order to ensure that they're going to be showing up? And so what we did is we looked at the 2016 election, and we saw where all the battleground states were, and people were, shocked how people voted there. And while we were looking, we also saw we had a high Native population in all of those states. And we saw there were 7 states. There was Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. And all of them either had a high Native population because of the reservations or because of the urban population. And after we did the numbers, we saw that, for instance, Minnesota, Hillary Clinton won by less than 2 percentage points. And a lot of the House and the Senate races, some of them were won by 1,000 votes. It wasn't that much that people were winning elections on. And we saw that we could either close that gap or exceed that gap in any election in 2020. So then, that's when we had the plan. We were able to know the date, know the location, and now we had a reason for them to come.
On issues like preventing suicide and missing and murdered Indigenous women, and trying to get full funding for health care and for housing. I see young leaders who come and talk to me about the new businesses they're starting on tribal lands, graduates of our tribal colleges who have innovative ideas, tribal leaders who remind me every day how much our tribes serve their citizens and their neighbors. The message I hear from Indian country is one of resilience and hope. Now, before I go any further in this, I want to say this. Like anyone who's being honest with themselves, I know that I have made mistakes. I am sorry for harm I have caused. I have listened and I have learned a lot. And I am grateful for the many conversations that we've had together. It is a great honor to be able to partner with Indian country. And that's what I've tried to do as a senator, and that's what I promise I will do.
Think about the kind of issues that get raised. Most of the candidates here have some speeches, and they talk about the same things everywhere they go. They talk about minimum wage or Medicare for all. Very important issues, but not quite the ones that involve Indian country. This forces them to deal with issues that they don't get very often. And treaty rights is something that doesn't pop up often in the campaign. So yeah, there are themes, but those themes are all important. And getting people on the record about not just that they respect treaty rights, but they'll actually fund them, I think is essential.
You raised a number of questions. As I mentioned earlier, it is unacceptable to me that treaties signed and agreements made were then rescinded or simply not acknowledged. And that is the history of the Native American people, yeah? So you have a treaty, as I think you indicated, which says you are guaranteed health care as a right. And that treaty has certainly been abrogated And I think we all understand that the Indian Health Service is not doing anywhere near what it should be doing. As somebody who believes absolutely that health care is a human right for the Native American people and for everybody else, we will reform fundamentally the Indian Health Service so that it will take care of your need and the needs of all Native American people. And the truth of the matter is, I know people say, well, the truth is this, within the context of a multi-trillion-dollar federal government, is not an expensive proposition. We could provide quality health care to every Native American person, and trust me, it'll cost a lot less than one new weapon system for the Pentagon. Right,
and you think about the 11 candidates here and the opportunity they'll have to make change, they will come out of this better than they were on Native issues. And one of them might not get elected, but they still might be in the Senate and say, hey, I can push this bill. One of them might be in the cabinet and can do something in that role. I think there's a really good chance there could be Native Americans in the next cabinet. And I think that will come because of this conversation.
We passed the 13th Amendment. Now, most people think the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery. They think it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States. But what it actually says is neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States. So have we ever abolished slavery? No. Where's it legal? Prison. Well, it should surprise no one that the United States of America incarcerates its citizens at the highest rate of any country in the world, and we incarcerate our people of color at 3 to 5 times the rate we incarcerate white Americans. Cannot believe I have to say this running as a candidate in 2020, but one of the primary planks of my platform is that we need to, as the United States of America, abolish slavery, period.
People should not take our vote for granted. We would support anybody that supported our issues, supported our treaties and our sovereignty. And it don't matter. This has never been a political party thing it's always been a Native thing. First of all, I think Natives should be in both parties. I think we should have Natives and Republicans, and I think we should have Natives and the Democrats. But they're only there not because of the party, they're there so that they can work together on Native issues. So it's never going to be about a party issue, it's always going to be about our people's issue.
And if we're going to create a more prosperous America, we need to ensure that we listen to the voices of indigenous peoples, our first people, and that we actually come with humility and respect and a willingness to partner and recognize the sovereignty of our tribal nations, to make investments in education, in healthcare, in ensuring that all Native people can have a safe, decent, and affordable place to live, that we do things like respond to the fact that you've had 5,700 missing and murdered women and girls over the last several years, and that we ensure that we take that seriously. And so I look forward to a conversation on how we can make sure that even though we can never go backward and completely right the wrongs of the past, and there have been so many wrongs when it comes to our indigenous communities, we can create a better future with leadership that comes with humility and with respect and understanding, and is willing more to listen and to learn than to talk, and most especially is willing to act with you.
Great Vine Deloria book, We Talk, You Listen, and I think there's some truth to that from this particular forum. It's a good thing. There's a lot to learn. Most politicians, every kid in America grows up learning about city, county, state, and the federal government. They don't learn about tribal governments. They don't learn about the history that is 10,000 years. They only learn about the last 200.
To make sure we have good healthcare outcomes.
I think that would be more acceptable to the tribes, and having us have access to a universal health care system is another afterthought. And I really encourage you to continue to outreach with Indian countries such as NCEI, NIHB, and other Indian organizations that can really help you understand the needs and solutions that we've come up with by the issues and challenges that we see in our remote Native communities. And I also encourage you to visit an Indian reservation, and you will really be able to gain some perspective on those solutions.
And
You know, we accomplished something that should have happened years ago. Everything was done and yesterday started. It was no longer about organizations. It was about tribal nations and tribal people. And so we met our goal yesterday, not only as developing communication amongst the candidates and amongst the tribal nations and the tribal members, but we made this a tribal forum. We made it so that it was the tribal nations and the tribal people that were talking to the candidates, not organizations. And that's what I really push for. And at the end of the day, I think we succeeded in making this our people's forum, not an organization forum.